Thank you very much for joining in, ladies and gentlemen. A very interesting session lined up, in fact, a series of sessions lined up on a very, very important subject, and that is taxation. We are very thankful to EY Sri Lanka, who's partnered with ACCA to deliver these sessions. And similarly, EY in Pakistan and EY in Bangladesh are also knowledge partners for the 6 Digits program. So we're very, very thankful. Today we have with us Roshni Fernando. She is one of the tax partners at EY Sri Lanka. So she's joined us today. And we also have Nimilka Pereira, and she's the manager at EY. Both these ladies will be running the show today. As you've done in the past, let's keep this session as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, you can type in, but the difference today is going to be that since this session is about the structure and overview of the tax structure in Sri Lanka, you can type in your questions, and the panelists, after they have delivered the presentation, will look at your questions and try to answer them. Not be interactively answering questions, but if you have any question in mind, it's perfectly all right to type it in. Okay. Once again, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. This is a total of 10 hours of introduction, of interaction, and we expect that in these 10 hours, you'll have a fairly good understanding of the tax system in Sri Lanka. For participants joining us from Bangladesh and Pakistan, I would say this is an excellent opportunity for us to know about the tax structure, the tax systems in other parts of the world, compare it with the tax systems in our countries, and therefore be able to adequately reflect on your knowledge of tax structures and tax systems in different parts of the world. This is an advantage that global organizations would provide to their members. This is an advantage that EY enjoys because they've got their presence in different parts of the world. And this is what we want you people to have, and this advantage we want you to have as participants of the 6 Digits program and as members and future members of the CCA. So very, very important sessions lined up. Let me now, without any further ado, hand over to Roshni, who will start the session from here. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Harun, so much for that lovely introduction. It's actually a pleasure, and thank you for inviting ACCA. A very big thank you. It's actually a pleasure to be part of your 6 Digit program. So I'm not going to introduce ourselves again. So Nimilka, if you can just start on the video if you can.
You mean the slideshow, right, Roshi?
No, the video. Do you have? Can you see it?
Presentation, right, Roshi?
No, there was a video. The video.
I can run it if you're facing a problem, not an issue.
Can I know the video name once again?
Feroz, if you can comment.
Yeah, Nimilka, it's Ripples.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to select that video and then press the play button that will appear on the screen.
It's from uploaded videos, right?
Yes. I think on the 3rd or 4th number, the video should be on 3rd or 4th number.
Yeah, can I know the video name?
Ripple.
Right, okay.
Now you click on the play button that's on the screen.
Yeah, I played it. Can you see?
It's loading.
Ferozi, can you take over as presenter and do it yourself and then hand over back to Nimilka?
It's starting. Yeah, Nimalka, use a play button now.
Okay.
That's okay. Put up the slides, Nimaka. That's fine.
Just wait a second. I'm just doing it. Just give me a second.
At EY, one tiny question like, is there a better way, may seem a drop in the ocean, but it causes a ripple effect that can spread out to the entire world. Every question we ask can build confidence in the capital markets, can help our clients grow, innovators accelerate, governments solve more complex challenges, and communities to thrive. All of these better questions on a huge scale create long-term value for our people, clients, and society that leads to sustainable, inclusive growth. Every better working answer ladders up to achieve our purpose of building a better working world. So, the question that you ask is the drop that starts the ripple.
Yes, Nimalka, now you can share your slide deck. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can see the screen, right?
Yes. Can you put it on full?
Roshni, can you see that screen, right?
Yes, I can. And it's on full mode, no? Full screen.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, once again. Thank you for taking time to connect today. And as Harun said, this is a series of webinars EY Sri Lanka has been is privileged to host for the next couple of sessions. Basically, it's concentrating on the tax landscape in Sri Lanka. So let's move on to the next slide. So the agenda for this evening is I'll briefly go through the course content for the next couple of sessions. We'll also go through the tax collecting authorities in Sri Lanka, a composition of government revenue, government expenditure, and also we'll briefly go through some of the proposals and the stage where they are at what was articulated in the budget 2022. And also some of the new developments which can be made use of, going forward as well. Next slide. So the first, as of like Harun said, today will be like a very brief sort of overview of the tax structure in Sri Lanka. We'll probably just cover a few items so that you'll be able to sort of connect how the tax system works. The next week, we will be concentrating on taxation on dividends, transfer pricing. The following week, we'll be doing corporate income tax. And thereafter, we will be doing tax on realization of assets and liabilities, which, commonly called capital gains tax. So from item 2 to 5, basically will be based on the Inland Revenue Act, which is effective from 1st April 2018. And we'll be running through, the rates, the exemptions, some of the exclusions, so each section we have divided so that it's easily understood, and so that the participants can ask questions relevant to those areas. And last but not least, the last 2 sessions will be on value-added tax. Next slide. So the first question is, who has control over public finance in Sri Lanka? So public finance is, collecting of revenues, duties, taxes. So that amounts to public finance. So in Sri Lanka, the Constitution of Sri Lanka, as per the Constitution of Sri Lanka, the Parliament has full control over public finance. Therefore, only the Parliament has the power to impose taxes, duties, and levies. If a public authority or a local authority, such as a municipal council or urban council, is to impose tax, it should only be under the authority of the Parliament of Sri Lanka. So not only does the imposition, even the power to repeal, increase or decrease any tax in Sri Lanka is under the purview of the Parliament. So, so the Constitution specifically provides for these provisions. Next slide. So let's take a look at some of the tax collecting authorities and what sort of taxes they collect, and the composition of the revenue in Sri Lanka. So we won't be going through all of them. We'll concentrate on 4 of the main revenue collecting authorities. The first one is the Sri Lanka Customs, which is probably one of the oldest departments in Sri Lanka, government departments in Sri Lanka, established in 1806. So primarily, as much as they collect tax in the form of duties and various other taxes, it also has other functions which are regulatory and enforcement of law and so forth. The next revenue collecting authority is the Department of Inland Revenue, which was established in 1932. The purview of the Inland Revenue Department in Sri Lanka is basically collecting income tax, VAT, previously, nation building tax, any form of direct or indirect taxes, and also stamp duty, which is not governed by the provincial council. Next slide. The next revenue collecting authority is the Excise Department. They have very specific duties, which is collecting of excise on alcohol and tobacco. Like the customs, they also have additional responsibilities in terms of enforcement and various other functions which are more regulatory. Then the next tax collecting authority is the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka. There, it's very specific. The area that is covered is the telecommunication sector, and there are various taxes which are very specific to this sector. So they concentrate on collecting, telecommunication levy, the cess. There is SMS levy. So again, concentrated on the particular sector. Like the other 2 previous agencies that I spoke about, they also have a regulatory function in terms of, granting licenses, spectrum licenses, enforcement, and so forth. So basically, we will go through each of these. 1 minute, Imaka. So we will go through in a later slide as to the composition of the taxes and how, what percentage of revenue is collected by each of these authorities to get a better understanding. So just keep this in mind as we go along. One other authority that I want to sort of collecting authority is the provincial councils. Provincial councils also impose taxes, as you know, in Sri Lanka, various licenses and so forth. So that also is governed by the parliament. The only difference is the provincial councils generally collect taxes relating to each area. So in the constitution, if you look at that particular section, you will see what are the authorities given to the provincial councils, plus what are the different types of taxes they can collect. So generally, basically, it's turnover related, licenses, liquor licenses, betting and gaming, motor vehicle licenses, and very importantly, stamp duty on property transfers. So that particular duty has been, the responsibility has been given to the provincial council. So that's just sort of a very summarized version of, the tax collecting authorities in Sri Lanka. The main one, so there are other, different areas that, collect licenses. I'm not going to go through that, because if you see in the ensuing slides, majority of the taxes and duties are collected by these authorities that I've just spoken about. Next slide. So what is the procedure for imposing a new tax or changing a tax law? As you know, each year in November, the government spells out the budget for the following year. So in November 21, we saw the government presenting the budget for 2022. Basically, the budget is the income and expenditure account of the government. So one area, so which is the revenue and expenditure, the revenue, so they will give proposals how they're going to generate revenue. So those proposals will include either new taxes or various forms of collecting revenue. So it might be implementing new laws, it might be changing the new laws. So how does the proposals in the budget get legislated? So there is a procedure. I'll just summarize just for for knowledge purposes what the procedure is. So once the proposals for revenue are given in the budget, what happens is the Ministry of Finance with the particular agency, say for example, if it's the changes in income tax law, with the assistance of the Department of Inland Revenue, they will draft the scope of the change to the particular law, either it's amendment or a new law. Once that is drafted, that particular draft will go to the legal draftsman. The legal draftsman in Sri Lanka will draft, basically, taking into consideration all the laws, and that particular document will be tabled to the Cabinet of Ministers for approval. Once that is done, it is published in the Government Gazette, and after 7 days, it will be included in the order paper of the Parliament. Now within that 7 days, if somebody wants to sort of challenge the particular law, right, they can challenge the Supreme Court on a case of giving the reasons. So if there is no challenge to the Supreme Court, within 7 days, it is presented to the Parliament by the Minister of Finance. After which is presented, it is read. I think there are 3 readings, I think. And at that time, the Parliament becomes a committee, right? So either the law can be passed without committee stage approvals or with. So if it is with, the law will be, the draft, what was presented will be changed and presented again, and it is certified by the Speaker. Once the document is certified by the Speaker only, it becomes law. So I think some people are under the impression that when revenue proposals are articulated during the budget, it becomes law. No. So there's a series of steps that is taken, and I've actually only summarized it. So in Sri Lanka, so it's only at the time of certification it becomes law. So once it becomes law, depending on who the revenue collecting authority, which I spoke about before, will implement it, and then whatever the taxes that are collected from this to the state is transferred to what you call the consolidated fund. The consolidated fund is maintained at the Ministry of Finance. So the consolidated fund will, so from the consolidated fund only, disbursements will go depending on the allocations, approvals, and so forth. So there is also a procedure for that, which goes to Parliament unless otherwise it has been allocated to a particular project. So that sort of summarizes, the procedure of making a law. It's not as easy as I said, but it is very simple form for everyone to understand, and also how the particular revenue authorities collect. So now I'm going to hand it over to Nimalka, who will go through the different types of taxes that are collected in Sri Lanka and which department, and also to see the composition, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding what it is. Just want to qualify there, we have only results up to 2020, so we'll be doing a comparison of that. Okay, thank you. Nimalka?
Yeah, thank you, Roshini. Yeah, having said and having understand about the tax collecting authorities in Sri Lanka and the procedures in this regard, we have moved into government revenue. As you can see in this table, the Sri Lanka government revenue is comprising of tax revenue and non-tax revenue, and small amount of grants. As we detailed in this table, if you can see the tax revenue, it is the highest revenue collection from the Sri Lanka government. It is 1,216,542 million in 2020. Though there is a drop from 2019 to 2020, but it's still the tax revenue contributing to government revenue as the highest collection. And overall, as a percentage, if we take the government revenue, tax revenue comprising of, as we discussed in the previous slide, is the tax collecting authorities we discussed from the customs, Department of Inland Revenue, that is income tax, VAT, excise duty. Those are included in the tax revenue. When it's come to non-tax revenue, non-tax revenue is comprising of income from interest, rent, dividend, social security contribution, etc. So in 2020, the government revenue in Sri Lanka amount to approximately 9.2% of the country's GDP, as you can see in this table. This was a decrease from 2019, in which the government revenue in Sri Lanka amounted to approximately 12.6% of the country's GDP. The reason for such reduction we will be discussing later on this presentation. And moving on to the next slide. As we discussed, the government revenue is comprising of tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Since the major part of the government revenue is comprising of the tax revenue, we will be discussing the tax revenue in the slides to be coming. From the tax revenue, the highest revenue have been collected from the customs, that is 53%, and the next highest revenue is from Department of Inland Revenue, that is 35%. If I take you through this pie chart, out of this 35% department collection, Department of Inland Revenue collection, 22% is from income tax and 12% is from VAT domestic. Moving on to customs, is 17% is from excise duty, that is collected from the customs customs. That is basically from motor vehicles, imports, and cigarettes. And 9% have been collected from PEL. So this is the composition of the tax revenue in Sri Lanka. So with the figures, rather the amounts, we are discussing this composition further in detail in the next slide. Yeah. This is the composition of the tax revenue compared to 2019, and we have been given the 22 figures as well, and the comparison as well. If you see the income tax, 268,204 million we have been collected during the year 2020. That is actually a reduction when it's compared to 2019, that is 37% drop. And when it's come to excise, that is the 17% contribution to customs, that is also a reduction. This reduction we will be discussing further. So this is the basic understanding of the tax revenue in Sri Lanka in compared to 2019. Yeah, if I explain you reason for the reduction of tax revenue, the decline in tax revenue collection due to multiple reasons actually. This comprise with the government policy decisions that have been taken to simplify the tax structure and the pandemic situation that hit to the economy in a bad way. So when it's come to the government policy decisions, one reason is that the introduction of a simplified tax system. In order to simplify the tax system, the government has taken a decision to remove certain taxes such as NBT, EAC, and withholding tax. One other decision is to increase the liable threshold. For an example, VAT, when it's come to VAT, that is the VAT collecting from the Department of Inland Revenue, the threshold has been increased to 300 million per annum. That is from previously it was 12 million per annum. And when it's come to PAY or the paid, now the term is paid we are using, that is also have been increased up to 250,000 per month. That is from 100,000. The threshold has been increased. And the certain exemptions have been introduced. That is actually to encourage investors to expand their business and to start up new businesses. The government has introduced these exemptions, and apart from these reasons, the most uncontrollable reason was the unexpected pandemic situation. This mainly affected for import duties, especially for excise duty on motor vehicles. That is the 17% contribution you saw in the pie chart we explained you. Though the contribution is highest from the from the excise duty, there is a drop compared to 2019. That is basically because of the pandemic situation. Having talked about the reasons, I want to add a point actually. Though the government reduces certain tax rates and remove certain taxes in order to fill the gap from that is the reduction of the tax revenue, government has taken another decision, that is to upward change in the rates of cigarettes and PAL rates. So it might not be the 100% catching up of the revenue loss, but I must tell the government could achieve 90% of the estimated revenue even after these policy changes to reduce or simplify the tax structure in Sri Lanka. If we move to the government expenditure, actually, you can see the recurrent expenditure and the capital expenditure. And in 2019 and 2020, the highest expenditure has been from the recurrent expenditure. Sri Lanka is a developing country. There are like communities the government have to look into, and apart from that, due to the pandemic situation, some part of the community, they lost their jobs, and some couldn't attend to their jobs because of the lockdown situation happened time to time. So the recurrent expenditure slightly has gone up, and the capital expenditure also has gone down. That is also because of the pandemic situation. Investment decisions that have been in the planning stage couldn't expedite as planned because of the lockdown situations. So the expenditure on investments also have gone down because of that. So this is the basic understanding of the composition of the revenue and the detail of the tax revenue in Sri Lanka, and a small discussion of the government revenue. Roshini, over to you, Roshini. Thank you.
Malka, yeah, just to summarize on those couple of slides that were mentioned on the government income and expenditure. So in 2019, when this government came into power, they had very ambitious plans to for development, and they gave very liberal tax concessions. By removing some of the indirect taxes, giving exemptions to spur investment, and increasing the VAT threshold, a plethora of it, and it all came at the same time. So unfortunately, what we didn't see, at least the government or no one's foresaw, was in March 2020 that the pandemic hit, and so the revenue and the revenue that would have collected in other ways, from investment and so forth, didn't really materialize because Sri Lanka went into a lockdown, and there were so many constraints in doing business. So one of the main reasons is the unexpected turn of events, which was not seen in 2019 when all these tax reforms came. Because the government at that time had good intention to have a very consistent tax policy for 4 to 5 years, so to spur investment, and also to for ease of doing business and so forth. So that's probably the summary of it. Nimaka, can you go to the slides on the proposals? Thank you. So to go to the the last section in today's discussion, I just want to briefly go through a couple of the revenue proposals that were articulated last year, and where they are at in terms of legislation. So and also to give a to get an understanding, there were only very few revenue proposals that were introduced, and I'll speak about the 3 main ones. So the first one was the introduction of a surcharge tax. It's in another way, it's like a super gains tax, and the surcharge will be, when the law gets passed, it will be imposed on any individual, partnership, or company whose taxable income exceeds 2 billion for the year of assessment 2021. So year of assessment 2021 returns have been filed last November. So basis of deciding whether the company or individual is liable or not is the return that has been filed. And from the law that was articulated in the budget, it has the scope has slightly sort of broadened to include groups. So any group of companies, which is the holding company and the subsidiaries, if you have a total of 2 billion taxable income, all companies in the group will be liable for the surcharge tax at 25%, irrespective whether individually, if you don't achieve the 2 billion. So individually you may not, but if you're part of a group has been defined. So if you are part of a group, if the law is passed, you may have to pay the 25%. As you know, the bill has been released. But it has not been, as far as I know, it has not been tabled in Parliament. I think there has been some challenges, in trying to table it. So there will be one return which is due on the 31st of March, and there will be two payments, one in March and one in June. So that is on the surcharge tax. The next one that they are proposing is what you call the social security contribution. That will be imposed on all liable key persons whose turnover exceeds 120 million per annum. And the tax rate that has been proposed is 2.5% on the turnover. And the effective date, what they are stating is April 1st, 2022. But as of now, we have not seen a bill as to how they will be implementing this particular tax, because this is, as you know, was similar to what we used to have for nation building tax, which was removed in 2019. It's a bit similar, but some of the exemptions that companies enjoy may not be introduced. That's what when the budget proposal was introduced, that it was said so everybody will be liable. If you have 120 million, but the practical side is, do you pay on a quarter, do you pay on an annual income? We still don't know, so we need to wait till see how the law is going to be drafted. Next one that they propose is what you call a special goods and services tax. This particular proposal was actually first articulated in 21, which did not get legally enacted. So this is for very specific sectors like the telecommunications, liquor, tobacco, motor vehicles, which has a sort of a multiple tax system, and where the authorities are different in collecting these particular taxes. So what the government wants is one particular tax, so it is easier to administer, and where those particular authorities, like the telecommunication regulatory authority, which is currently administering the regulatory side, will have enough time to sort of concentrate on the regulatory side as opposed to collecting the revenue. So here it will not be for all sectors, it will be for very, very specific sectors. And as you know, the bill has been released, but it has been challenged. I believe it has been challenged on certain grounds, so it has still not been tabled. Next slide. So this is the last. In conclusion, I want to speak on these two laws that are already in place. One is the tax amnesty and the write-off. This particular provision, the particular provisions are from the Finance Act. It's actually like a concession. It actually gives the taxpayer to write off any tax other than income tax and VAT. The taxes will be written off by the Department of Inland Revenue. So this particular law has two, sorry, I should have said that before, it has two parts. One is declaration of undisclosed income and the other one is the write-off. I'm not going to go through the undisclosed income part, but for the tax write-off, it actually gives opportunity if you have sort of arrears or if you have penalties or in the system, it is good to go and get a sort of a listing. Get a listing from the department. You have to get a listing from 3 areas and see what are the taxes that can be written off and the penalties. Here, I just want to sort of say that if there are legal cases pending, this particular relief won't be available because it is only if it is if there are no cases like in the TAPCAN Supreme Court or Appeal Court. So the law says that the Commissioner General will write off, but our advice is if you can visit the department, get a sort of a listing of your company's outstanding and see whether you can get it written off, and this particular provisions are only available till March 31st, 2022. The last one is like a tax relief for SMEs, and this is only for income tax, which where because of COVID there was a relief where they said there won't be any penalties up to the year of 18-19 if there was any delay. So that also see whether whether you fall within the definition of an SME and see whether you can actually make use of this relief that is given. I don't think there is a date, unlike the amnesty. So these are two reliefs that you can sort of make use of, and also for planning purposes as well. I just want to mention one more thing. Nimal, can you go to the previous slide? On the introduction of the social security contribution, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is because the tax is going to be levied on the turnover. If you have intercompany sales, that is something you have to keep in mind, the cost attributed, because you might have a case where it might be double, like 2.5% on your sale to the intercompany, and the intercompany selling it outside. So you have to keep this in mind when you're doing budgets or you're forecasting for the next financial year, and also the cost which you're going to bear if if you're receiving services or goods from another party where the cost may be passed on to you. So even though the law is not passed, these are things probably something to sort of look at when if you're in the process of budgeting for the next financial year, because as per the proposal, this will be introduced from 1st April 2022. So that sort of concludes what we wanted to sort of say on the first day. So let me see if there are any questions.
Harun is not audible, but Roshni, can we take some questions? We have lined up little questions. I think we can answer them. Okay, so Mustafa wants to know, is the 25% progressive or on the whole income? I think Mustafa, you have to be a bit more concise, so Roshni would know the context. Let's jump on to the next one. Is this the social security contribution tax applicable for BOI companies as well?
Yes, there is no. Yeah, can I take the first question? The first question, if I'm to understand, it's 25% on the taxable income. So yes. If you are, so if you are an individual company, if your taxable income was 2 billion and above for the year of assessment 2021, where the return was filed in November, you have to pay 25%. Otherwise, if you are part of a group, there is no group tax in Sri Lanka, but they want you to sort of aggregate or the taxable income of the group and that is the holding company and the subsidiaries. See if it's over 2 billion. And then if you are over 2 billion, you will be charged with 25%, irrespective even if the individual company is not. Only exclusion there would be companies if they have a business loss. I hope I answered that.
Yes, quite a detailed answer. I hope Mustafa would understand what Roshni has explained. Yes, Mustafa is confirming that he understood your answer.
Okay,
Moving
fine.
on to the next one. The next one is from Prabhat, and the question is this Social Security contribution tax applicable for BOI companies as well?
Yes, I'm assuming so, because we only still have the budget proposal. Unlike the two, the super gains and the special goods and services, there is no even bill for me to refer. The budget proposal said all companies over 120 million turnover. So we hear informally export companies may be exempted, but I don't want to confirm that because I haven't seen any document as of yet.
Okay, I hope that answered Prabhat's question. The next up is Shakil. Shakil has some detailed questions. If you don't mind, can I unmute him so he can ask them directly?
Okay.
Shakil, can you please raise your hand? Shakil, I have unmuted you. You're on self-mute. You can unmute and speak up. Shakil.
Can you hear me now?
Shakil, you're audible.
Yes, my question was regarding agriculture income. I wanted to know about agriculture income. Is there any tax on agriculture income in Sri Lanka? And there was a second question regarding, as you were talking about composite contracts. So I wanted to know about like construction contracts. There are goods and services, both are used. Different countries recognize and classify them as like goods, and some countries recognize them like these are services. So what is the system for like construction, restaurants, and other industries like you have mentioned earlier regarding telecommunication? But in Pakistan, we levy tax, sales tax on services. We take it as service, telecom is service. How that is treated in Sri Lanka? So I take an example of construction restaurant and their classification also.
I'm sorry, it wasn't clear to me. What you asked me, it was not clear to me. Is it possible to repeat the first? You had two questions, right?
Yes, I wanted to know about agriculture income. Okay. Is agriculture income taxable in Sri Lanka?
In terms of
yeah,
so Shakil, and when you say whether it's taxable, the agriculture income, are you talking about income tax or VAT?
Agriculture income, talking about income tax.
Okay, so income tax, there are two components for, I'll make it like very simple. There are two components for agriculture. There is agro farming and what was the other one? Agro farming and
manufacturing.
Yeah, manufacturing. Yeah. So one is where you actually there is no process involved, right? And the other one is there is a part of a manufacturing process involved. So you need to distinguish depending on the type of agriculture you do. You need to distinguish between those two. One has an exemption, other one is at 14. What was the next question?
Next question was regarding composite contracts. You have mentioned in introduction of special goods and services tax. the tax shall be levied on certain identified goods and services as a composite tax. So I took example of construction industry and restaurants. These are two industries where goods and services both are provided at the same time. One person who is constructing and providing the material also. The same case goes with the restaurants. So I want to know that how these are classified in Sri Lanka in terms of service tax or goods tax. How do you classify them? Are these counted and classified as services or goods over there? And how tax is charged over there?
Yeah, so this special goods and services, as I said, it's for very specific areas which is already taxed, like telecommunication, betting and gaming, liquor, motor vehicle, which has several different types of taxes imposed by several different institutions. So they are trying to make it composite and then have one tax. That's the idea. So construction is different. So construction is, it all depends on how the construction activity has been formed. So you have to look at the agreement to see whether whether the construction is with the goods or not. So it all depends on how it has been structured in terms of how you do it. So this special goods and services has nothing to do with construction. This is for actually it's for existing sectors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next up is Amjad Zahir. It's a short question. He wants to know, is Social Security contribution tax deductible?
No, it will not be. It will be a cost. So you will have to sort of adjust the pricing if you don't want to absorb, otherwise it will become a cost. So when this particular tax was sort of articulated last November, the finance minister was very particular that it is not passed on to the end consumer. But I'm not very sure how companies can absorb a cost, because like I said, you may have cost which you have to pay when you're buying a service or goods. You may not see it because it's in the price, and also when you're selling goods as well, so because you have to pay it on the turnover. So to answer your question, it's not deductible.
Okay. Next up is Muhammad Ans Khan. Ans wants to know, does tax amnesty help in boosting up the GDP?
Well, that was the intention, because especially because, like I said, there were two components for it. One was for undisclosed income, because that was supposed to be invested in particular assets. So I'm not, because I don't think many people really took the relief, because they were not sure in subsequent to sort of disclosing what the implications would be. So to answer, the short answer is yes, but I don't think many people took that option.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Next one is Dinuki, our regular participant. Okay, Dinuki wants to know, if you are a subsidiary of a foreign company, are you liable for surcharge tax?
No, so there's specifically in the bill, it says if foreign, if you're a company of if you're a subsidiary of a foreign company, the group is not considered. But if you have individually 2.2 billion and above, you will be. Because it's in two parts. So you have to say, so in that case, if you are part of a foreign holding company, you will have to see whether individually you are over 2 billion.
Okay. Okay, the next up, the next question, not sorry for pronouncing your name wrong, but can I unmute you and you can ask the question yourself? I've unmuted you. You're on self-mute. You can unmute and speak up. Dushanta.
Yes, hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes. You're loud and clear.
Okay. My question is now according to the new amendments about that new taxes for that income surcharge exceeding 200 million rupees. So on what basis are they going to charge that one? Is it on a, so at present the income tax is paid on a quarterly basis, but here for this particular tax, the surcharge tax, on what basis do we have to pay? Is it on a monthly basis or quarterly basis?
No. There will be, so there will be so there will be one return you will have to file on March 31st, 2022, and there will be two installments. One is March 31st, and other one will be June 30th, 2022.
Okay,
So
so in two installments,
sorry, it will be they are saying it's a one-off tax, right? So once you compute, yeah, so it will be two installments. When the budget, when they mentioned it in the budget, it was 3, I believe, but now they have made it to 2. So March and June. I'm assuming those dates won't change because it has to still get passed in Parliament.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next one is Hassan Mahmood. Hassan Mahmood wants to know, has Sri Lankan government signed any double tax treaty with other countries?
Yes, there are at least about 50, I think.
No.
There are at least 50 countries.
Okay, I hope that answers the question.
It's about 40 to 40, at least 40 to 45, yeah, if not more, yeah. But those are very specific. I mean, those are for mainly for income tax. You know, the relief is for income tax.
Okay, that's great. Is there any other question from the participants? Guess not. So let's just conclude this today's session. I would like to thank Roshni and Imalka for your time. It was a wonderful session and quite informative. One thing that I'm looking forward for, will you guys be okay if you could send me the PDF of the slide deck and I can share with the participants? Only if you allow, then we can share that.
Sure. There is a bit of a procedure which we need to go through. Once that is completed, we'll definitely share.
Sure, that's great. Okay, let's just conclude today's session. I would like to thank you guys again for joining in the sessions. I would like to thank Roshni and Imalka for their time. We will be meeting next up on Monday. The next session is planned on Tuesday. Yes, that's correct. That's on Tuesday. Basically, we just shuffled the calendar last week, so I got a little confused about that. So we'll be meeting on the coming Tuesday for our next session about the overall structure of the Sri Lankan tax. Till then, yes, Roshni, if you want to add.
No, thank you so much. And if the participants have any questions they would want to ask, if they can even send it beforehand, because the next session is on tax on dividends. So if they have very specific questions, even if they can send it across, that is fine. But we can still take questions on that day itself. And hopefully we'll have a more interactive session, because as I said at the beginning, this was only sort of an introduction, so that people will have sort of a very broad understanding how the tax system works in Sri Lanka. So hopefully it was useful, and thank you so much, ACCA, for having us.
Yeah. From next on, if we can make it more, if you want to make it more interactive, what we can do is we can have a little question breaks during this slide deck presentation. We can take certain questions regarding a specific topic. Once you have explained that to the participants, we can do that. But if you want to be fluent till the end of the session, you can do that. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So let's so because like I said, I've broken it down into various areas, so it's easier to sort of absorb. Otherwise, you know. So let's try and I'll try and break the series even on Tuesday and see whether we can take questions on those particular areas, because even within the section on dividends, there are various various ways to look at it. So maybe we can break it down. So I'll keep that in mind.
That's perfect. So see you guys on Tuesday. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the sessions. Bye bye from my side, and thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
attending the session.
and have a lovely
Thank
evening.
you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.